Disney are making more company-wide cuts, and this time it's not just at the ground level because everybody's getting got. This time it's hitting their top long-term executives. Meanwhile, in Mergerland, we have two new attorney generals come out of the woodwork opposing the Paramount-Warner Bros. Antitrust case. Not the merger, but the case. And my thinking is, why are they so late to the party? Let's get into this week in film. So Disney are offering their long-time executives an early retirement package as a way to support their ongoing layoffs and cost-cutting efforts. They're calling this the VERO program, which stands for Voluntary Early Retirement Offer. This program is supposed to recognize their executives' long-term contributions and efforts to the company. This VERO program includes the following, and I'm going to have to read this now. Separation pay, continued vesting of existing equity awards, healthcare support at active employee rates, and continued Silver Pass access to Disney theme parks, which is quite nice, actually. Earlier this month, Josh D'Amaro, the Disney CEO, and Hugh Johnston, who is the CFO, revealed that there's actually going to be more cost-cutting measures and layoffs to come, which is such a shame, because I first reported on their layoffs back in April and again in July, and now they're saying there's more to come. And it's such a hard time in the job market at the moment. It's been like this, especially over the last 2 years, I would say. It's been quite a tough market in the US and UK especially, and just to hear that of the thousands of cuts they've already made earlier this year, and now that there are more to come, it's just not what we want to hear. When I last reported on this, actually, I was hoping that we wouldn't hear any more happening this year, but clearly there are more to come. So I just hope for those people who are most affected that they do eventually find another opportunity, which fulfills them just as much. And yeah, it's a tough time. Back to Paramount fiasco Mergerland. We have two new Republican attorney generals come out against the antitrust case. This is Brenna from Iowa and Austin Knudsen from Montana. They have asked the Supreme Court to step in to block this antitrust case from even happening because it's delaying the closing of the merger, and they believe that the harms that are coming from this delay are irreversible. So they said that this case burdens the national economy, harms plaintiff states' quasi-sovereign interests, and conflicts the federal antitrust enforcement regime. They've also accused that the 12 states involved in the antitrust case are politically motivated when it comes to their opposition of the merger, because these 12 states are Democratic states, and therefore they are against this merger, particularly David Ellison, because they believe that David Ellison has done some kind of corrupt deal with Donald Trump. As we've mentioned in previous videos, Donald Trump and David Ellison seem to have a close relationship with each other. So for them, Brenna and Austin Knudsen, they believe that, well, there is a political motivation behind this antitrust case and it's not completely authentic. There has been some skepticism around what the Supreme Court can actually do in this situation, because the kind of issues they usually deal with are boundary disputes and, water rights and things of that nature. So when it comes to antitrust cases such as this, it's not really their forte, or it's not really their responsibility in this sense. So we've had two people come out with their skepticism of what the Supreme Court will actually do. We have Eric Gordon from the University of Michigan, from the Ross School of Business, say that the Supreme Court is more likely to declare Donald Trump litigator of the year than it is to block the states from enforcing their own antitrust rules. Norm Eisen, who actually was one of the campaign leaders behind the Block the Merger campaign, came out to say, there's no valid legal basis to do this. The new filing by Iowa turns the entire American legal system on its head. That's why the Supreme Court is going to reject it. I personally feel that this may not go anywhere either, but then I don't really fault them for trying, because as we've been seeing over the past 8 months, everybody from different corners of the film industry are coming out to oppose the merger. You're either for it or you're against it. And then when it comes to this case that's blocking the merger, it's really revealing who and where people stand on this whole acquisition. So I don't know, Brenna and Austin, they're trying their luck, and why not? Why not? But I just personally don't think it's really gonna go anywhere, especially if they're asking the Supreme Court, who don't usually deal with these matters. But we'll see. I guess all the best to them, but I don't know. This might not be the last we see different people come out with their stance on the merger. I mean, why not? Lastly, we have Jane Fonda, who has come out in support of Mark Ruffalo in his views around the Paramount merger. Now, if you watch my last video, you'd have seen that I covered what Mark Ruffalo's views were in terms of towards the Ellisons specifically, and the whole fiasco around that. Jane Fonda has come out to say, Mark Ruffalo has a First Amendment right to speak out about politics, powerful corporations, and this dangerous merger. Full stop. Calling his criticism anti-Semitic is a smear to delegitimize criticism of the merger and to distract from the question Paramount would rather not answer. Should one company be allowed to accumulate this much power over our movies, television, and news? It's funny because reading that last sentence from Jane Fonda reminded me of Kanye West's song Power, where he's like, no one man should have all that power. I thought that was quite a close link there. But I'm glad that Jane Fonda has come out to say this in support of Mark Ruffalo, and she might actually have her disagreements against some of the things he said, but what she's standing up for is his right to free speech. It's his right to his opinion, and I think that's really, really important. And as I mentioned in my last video, I don't think there's anything that Mark Ruffalo said is anti-Semitic. I feel like it's just a deflection by Paramount, or David Ellison especially, that he comes out saying with his views, criticizing the actions that he's seeing from certain people, and then here you are just want to labeling him as such. And I think he had a good response to David Ellison, well, at least to Paramount's claims anyway. So good on Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda's always been someone that's always spoken up for things that she believes in, so it was good to hear her in this sense as well, sticking up for Mark Ruffalo of free speech. Someone else that has come out to support Mark Ruffalo is Hannah Einbinder. She says, the idea that he only said these things because the Ellisons are Jewish is ludicrous. Is it also anti-Semitic to point out that Safra Katz, the Oracle executive vice chair who boasted about the profoundly scary technology provided to the IDF, also sits on Paramount's board? Or that Larry Ellison has been buying favor with Trump by donating tens of millions to his political effort for years? Or that he once offered Netanyahu a lucrative Oracle post? Great questions by Hannah, and I'm so glad to see that there are more people kind of coming out to support Mark Ruffalo in his, first of all, his right to free speech, but obviously questioning this whole merger and some of the corruption that's happening behind the scenes. And these things must be asked. And it's always the way when someone exposes corruption happening behind the scenes that suddenly they get painted or labeled some certain way, and it's like, no, these are valid questions to ask. So good on Jane Fonda and Hannah for defending Mark Ruffalo. I generally think there are probably many others that agree with Mark Ruffalo, many others in the film industry that do agree with him as well, but maybe are just a little bit apprehensive to come out publicly and say so. I remember Mark Ruffalo saying that when it came to signing the petition against the merger, there were many other actors and professionals in the industry that agreed with the letter and agreed with him, but they were too scared to kind of sign their name down because of whatever kind of repercussions that they receive by publicly being against Paramount, especially if they've had close ties with people in the company and those who are working on the merger behind the scenes. So yeah, the brave ones will come out and vocally show their opposition of the corruption behind this merger, and there will be others that will probably silently support. That's all I have for TWIF this week in film. Let me know what you think of these attorney generals from Iowa and Montana. Do you think they have a case on their hands? Do you think the Supreme Court can actually step in? Do you think they'll actually be successful in even persuading the Supreme Court to do anything? Personally, I highly doubt it, but you never know how these things go. And do you think we're going to get a date soon for the rescheduled talks between Rob Bonta and Paramount? Because we're still waiting on that. Rob Bonta's not happy with Paramount's behavior, and that's fair enough. But I don't know, this merger, it's just never ending. But I love it. I love it, but I don't love it for those who are actually obviously going to be primarily affected in terms of their jobs. So let's hope there's some kind of resolve soon. And speaking of jobs, what do you think of Disney's cuts and further cuts they're making at the moment? Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the comments.